Well, hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Jay's Cultural Arts Corner podcast. I'm John Wilson, Director of Cultural Arts at the Jay, and as usual, I am coming to you from the ludicrously beautiful and majestic podcast studios at Cobalt Communications here in Fenton, Missouri. Now, today, I'm really excited about this conversation. I'm sitting down with Laura Skroska, and Laura is the technical director of theater and facilities. And facilities is a big add to the end of your title, Laura.
It sure is.
Yeah, but thanks for sitting down and thanks for being here today.
Glad to be here.
All right, so like I typically do with the guests, I like to back up the calendar a number of years. For you, I get to back up the calendar quite a bit further because you've been at the J longer than any of my previous guests combined, including myself. So tell me what you were doing before the job at the J, just what was life like in your world, how you discovered this job, and ultimately what attracted you to being here.
Yeah, I guess I've been with the J almost 9 years now in a couple different positions. And, I started as the assistant technical director on mostly for New Jewish on a part-time basis. And then when the tech director left, I became the tech director. So before I came to the J, I had actually been out of theater for, probably 8 or 9 years. Actually hadn't been doing much work. I'd picked up a few load-in or strike calls, just a few here and there, but I really hadn't done a show in a significant amount of time, probably since the very end of my undergrad. And after I finished undergrad, I knew that I was a little burned out on theater, and I didn't want to work in the field at that point. So I was doing all sorts of things. I worked for a wheelchair company doing service and repair.
Oh, wow.
I ran a warehouse. I was the buyer and retail manager for an online fabric store.
What? That's awesome.
And then, through a series of events, I ended up going back to grad school for fine art, for painting. And after I finished grad school, I was still working at the fabric store. I was working as the buyer part-time, and then my other part-time job was teaching drawing, painting, and fashion design to kids at a nonprofit. And I'd been doing that for about a year, and I was ready to make a change. I wanted to continue working in an arts field, but I was looking for something a little bit different. I knew I didn't really want to teach anymore, and I just kind of started looking around to see what was available. And I saw the job at the J, the assistant tech director job, and it was a part-time job, which would work well with my other part-time job. So it was kind of, 2 flexible jobs at once. Put together my resume, interviewed, and, started back in. And it's been a pretty wild ride in the last 9 years.
Yeah. And so was that enough of a break? Some of the teaching and some of the other freelance management and tech stuff that you were doing, was that enough of a break when you came back? Did you have a little bit more of a hunger for theater, or was it a little bit tougher to restart the engine?
No, I was absolutely ready to come back. It had been long enough, and I'd done enough other artistic work. Because part of going back to grad school is I really felt like I'd gotten a lot of theater-specific art training. But in terms of design and in terms of just my general art skills, I didn't have that specific fine art training. So I'd done that, really kind of trained my eye, really, I was ready to come back. And, for me, the big thing about working in theater events is the collaborative nature of it, and working with a team, and really working with this group of people that's at the top of their game. And I was so ready to get back into it, and so ready to be part of a team and really do this thing again.
Yeah. And let's talk about the job itself. So, technical director for theater and facilities. And like I just hinted at, that's a huge add, that last word on your job description. So two-part question. just break down for us kind of the main responsibility that you have to New Jewish Theater and maybe to youth theater. Maybe that. Well, we'll throw Theater Unlimited into facilities perhaps, but youth theater and New Jewish Theater, and then add that facility part and just tell me what are some of the other ways in which you technically support all these different events at the J.
Yeah, absolutely. So with New Jewish being the tech director, I'm responsible for overseeing all of the scenic construction. So I work really extensively with our designers to go back and forth and figure out how their designs translate into our space and with our construction capabilities, generate all those shop drawings. I do a fair bit of the carpentry myself with our assistant tech director, Patrice Nelms, and we have a few other people who come in. And then I'm also kind of, since I'm the one who's in that space full time, coordinating with our lighting people, with our sound people, with our painter, to get everybody in that space and make sure that all the technical elements of the show come off. I generally don't end up doing any lighting hang or any of that, but I kind of facilitate, anything that they may need. With sound, sometimes it's hanging speakers in the space. It's getting everything wired up. If we're doing projections, getting our projection surfaces up, getting the projectors hung, everything wired. Really anything technical that happens within the black box is my responsibility, which is, by itself is a big job. We do 5 shows a year. And then when you add to it youth theater and Theater Unlimited, those, I'm doing the same sorts of things. It's working with the directors and the staff to figure out, scenically what this looks like, working with the lighting designer for youth theater to then get her lighting hung and focused, and then figuring out then how to take that lighting and turn it into the Theater Unlimited lighting, which is always, an interesting challenge, sharing scenery and lighting between 2 sometimes wildly different shows. Working with trying to find props for them, doing the full sound system load in, working with our audio techs to figure out who's mixing it, figure out, how many mics do we need, just kind of that sort of thing. And then as far as the rest of the facility goes,
okay.
So that's 4 shows there.
Yeah. I just think everyone watching this needs to maybe take a break, get some coffee, do some yoga and breathe, and just really take in all that you already do.
Right. So
just for the core theater programs.
That's 9 shows a year there.
Oh my goodness.
And then we get into the rest of the building, which is essentially, we do have a really good setup and a really good team in building and grounds, and we've got a great technical setup where a lot of our events are structured so that they don't require direct support from myself or from anyone on my team. But anything that involves a little bit more, has higher AV needs. So sometimes it's, last night I was running the family Seder. So our song leader had a guitar and a mic, and Rabbi Brad had a microphone, a PowerPoint presentation with videos. So trying to get that sort of stuff set up. So sometimes it's internal events, getting AV coordinated for that. Sometimes it's external rentals. There's some trivia nights that we do that require a larger setup in the gym. We've been doing a lot of partnerships with St. Louis County Library that have needed a little bit more setup. Really just anything that has any sort of technical need. Sometimes it's maintenance around the facility, just, hey, this sound system isn't sounding right. Can you come take a look at it? Minor maintenance. And I also do a lot of essentially consulting with people around the building and with external rentals to figure out what support they need and how we can best help and what the best setup for an event is.
And your spaces include the Performing Arts Center, and the Wool Theater, and you've got the gym. Beyond those 3, where else are you assisting? Like where was the Seder last night?
Was in the Performing Arts Center last night. We also have the Day Camp Pavilion.
Oh, sure.
Which we do some events out there. We've done events at the pool. Plenty of stuff in the back parking lot. And then I guess the other portion of this is, any hybrid and streaming needs. I kind of forgot about that piece. I did a lot with getting our fitness center set up to be able to live stream classes and record and get those online. So really, it's a pretty much anywhere in the building. I've worked with Adult Day to get some of their stuff set up. The boardroom is wired for hybrid events. It's pretty, we've got capability to do hybrid meetings out of almost any space in the building. And we've kind of done it in every space.
So side question, is the Wonder Woman costume, is that worn Monday through Friday underneath the rest? Or is there a big S somewhere on your clothing? How do you end up managing all of this?
When I sit down and look at it, when I talk about everything that I do, it's a huge, overwhelming job. But really, it's just kind of what's the next thing in front of me and being very deliberate about my planning and knowing, youth theater isn't coming up until May, but I'm going to be really busy in May, so I need to get everything built in April, or just kind of those, having a better sense of what that overall calendar is and realizing, I've got a 2-week window here, so I may not need these scenic items for 3 months, but I can build them now. And it's just kind of that constant awareness of where those gaps in the calendar are. And, and also just, I work with an incredible team at the J. We have so many people on staff who have just great ideas and are great resources, and really just relying on people to, I've got a great group of part-time staff that come in, and just being able to call people and say, hey, do you want to, I need to rewire all the speaker jacks in the PAC. Do you want to come solder stuff?
What a great invitation.
Or, hey, we need to bench focus every single light in the building, just do summer maintenance. Do you want to listen to podcasts and, do maintenance for days on end?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. It sounds like a fun environment. You've mentioned your team several times. Obviously, that's a big part of your success as well. Okay. So recently, the USITT conference, and you can unpack that acronym for us, came into St. Louis. It was a really convenient opportunity for you to go get some professional development and come back either with some new ideas, or maybe with your eye on some technology, or maybe it was about some seminars or training classes that you did that helped you out. But tell us what USITT is, and then how you benefited by going to that conference.
Yeah, absolutely. So USITT is the United States Institute for Theater Technology. It's the technical theater professional group. And their conference was amazing. I had an opportunity to do 2 days of rigging training. So it was, some hands-on, but a lot of theory and a lot of practice on how to suspend things in the air above actors' heads, above the audience's heads, and do it in a safe way, and do it in a way that, is really following best practices. And it was a great opportunity to really do that because, working in a black box space, we don't have any ability to, we don't have a fly system. We can't bring things in and out. It's very much anything that we're going to hang has to be, just suspended overhead. And we do a whole lot of that. And really just making sure that what we've been doing is, following all the best safety practices, making sure that we're providing a safe environment for our technicians, our actors, our patrons. And just kind of hearing about developments in the industry was fantastic. I mean, was that portion of it was 2 days from 8 to 4:30 straight, just getting into the nuts and bolts of how to hang things, which was spectacular training. I went to a few other sessions. There was a great one about using small motors for theater props and scenery. And I knew I was in the right place because I showed up and they had one of the talking Billy Bass things that they had programmed to be able to say whatever they wanted it to, which was fantastic. And it started off talking about what are the best appliances to steal motors from, which is right up my alley. And just I talked with a lot of manufacturers. I looked at a lot of equipment. Spent a while talking with the people who had provided the equipment that we're working with now and figuring out, what replacement parts are available, because, we're at a point where the theater and the facility are, I believe, about 13 years old. So there's a lot of things where technology has changed just slightly and trying to figure out, where are we headed in the future. So looked at some lighting, looked at some sound, looked at some staging. It's just a great professional development opportunity. And I'm just really grateful that the J was able to, facilitate that for me, because it's, spending 4 days straight at a conference for 12 hours a day, and just making connections with people. And, I ran into people that I hadn't seen in years, which was also great, just to talk with people who have worked at the J with us, people I've worked with on freelance jobs, and just, make some new contacts. And it's a great experience.
It's one of the things I love about the J that I've discovered, only being there, little under 3 months, is the support. Mm-hmm. Everyone there wants everyone else to succeed. And that's a rare work ethic or ethos to permeate throughout an entire organization, but that's really been my experience, and I'm thrilled that you got to go to USITT and have that kind of training. So let's switch gears and tell me a little bit about just specifically New Jewish Theater. I'm curious, does your team change depending on the shows? Do you have a part-time staff that is pretty much a core staff that participates with you on every show? And then when it comes to, say, some of the finishing touches, the set dressing, the painting, properties, anything along those lines, how much are you directly, like, hands-on involved? So again, I think another 2-part question.
Right.
Sorry.
So it's, our shows are kind of back and forth. We do have a core team that works on almost every show. Our assistant tech director is the same for every show. And I do have a staff of part-time AV techs and carpenters who come in as needed. But our designers and our backstage crew and our stage management teams, those change per show. That being said, we do work with a lot of the same people. So I may, some of our designers may come in once or twice a season. Other times, it's been a few years since I've worked with them. But for the most part, St. Louis is in some ways a very small theater community. And, I found through other freelance jobs that, even when I'm working with a new company and I go in, I usually know 80% of the people in the room. So it's always fun to go to that first production meeting and, for New Jewish, and see people I haven't seen in 6 months, or people I haven't worked with in a while. But the thing that's kind of interesting about it is, even though we've all worked together, most of the time the composition of that particular team is very unique. Like, we haven't all worked together. And also our costume designer usually stays the same. Michelle Seiler works with us and manages all of our costumes and storage and just all the backstage stuff. So the team is the same but different. So it is a very, every show is a little bit of a different working environment.
It's one thing I've noticed, I think, almost in any theater community, it almost doesn't really matter the size of the city or how many professional equity theaters or non-equity theaters there are. There just always seems to be, like, the core people is a pretty small group of people that just keep running into each other. They're the ones that have survived everyone else's atrophy, everyone else, falling off, saying, I'm not going to pursue this anymore. There's this always a core that seems to remain. And so that's great that you've got an opportunity to connect with so many of the same people.
Yeah, and a lot of times we do hire, for some of the positions we do hire on a season basis. Katie Orr, our props master is on for the entire season. Cameron Tesson, who's our scenic charge, he's our painter, and he's on for the entire season. So it's, working with the same people, kind of knowing that consistency, and also in some of those positions being able to say, with Katie coming in and doing props for all of these shows, she's got a very good idea of what our stock is and also where the gaps in our stock are. And kind of, she's very good at purchasing props for a show with an eye, because we can either purchase or rent, kind of depending on the particular needs. And she's very good at saying, like, it would be really fantastic. We could rent this, but it would be really great if we owned it because we're going to use it again. And so kind of, having that consistent staff or, the people that work with us on a regular basis to be able to know, we could make this choice. It may not be the cheapest, but in the long run, it's better for the company, is such an incredible privilege. And also just, the skill level of everybody I work with is just amazing.
You have to be that smart when it comes to planning an entire season. The budget is the budget, and so it doesn't necessarily just stretch. It contracts better than it stretches. So it's great. You've got good people in place that are helping you make really smart decisions as well. So
and one of the other things with that is that we have the benefit of having an incredible scenic stock. We have about 3,000 square feet of storage space off-site over in Ferguson that's easily accessible to us and climate controlled, and it's great. So we're able to do, because we have that space and we can store all of these items, we can do a lot on not a huge budget.
Yeah, I heard about Ferguson from day one, and we need to take a trip out there so that you can walk me through it. It's growing in reputation every time it's mentioned, so I want to be able to get over there and see it.
Yeah, we have it's in an old match factory that my husband's uncle actually worked in the match factory when it was still the match factory, and growing up, my grandparents lived around the corner from it. So, it's a place that I've been around the corner from my entire life.
That is so. Yeah. Now that part I did not know. Yeah. So it was a working match factory, and did it become like a storage place for public use, or did you just find out it was available on your own because you're familiar with that space? How'd that work?
That I'm not certain. We've been in, I think, 3 different spaces in that building. That's something I think there was some connection to somebody at the J, a patron, a donor. I'm not certain. That would be a good question for Kathleen Sitzer, because I think she coordinated that. But it's that match factory is turned into just a commercial building. So there's a bakery in there. There's a popcorn factory.
Wow.
We're next to a screen printing company. There's a paint and coating manufacturer there. I think there's all sorts of businesses in that space.
Yeah. We need to get out there. We need to take a trip to Ferguson.
It's we moved into that space. Oh, I don't know. It's probably been into that specific space maybe 6 or 7 years ago. Maybe probably in that range. And we said, how are we ever going to fill all this? And through donations and through shows, we're just bursting at the seams at this point.
Wow, what a privilege to have that space. Tell me about, again, New Jewish Theater. Tell me about a particular show that you are either super proud of, maybe it was, it had a number of challenges and you overcame those challenges, or just something that you thought was, technically well done. I don't know. Is there a favorite? Is there a one or two shows that stick out to you?
Yeah, there's always a couple that stick out. And the thing is, the new Jewish shows have all just been so consistently high quality and well acted that it's more, the ones that are my favorites, the ones that really stick out to me are more for either technical reasons or planning reasons that maybe aren't apparent to the final audience. The most recent one would be Broadway Bound.
That was beautiful.
it was a gorgeous set. Peter and Marjorie Spack designed that, and it was just an incredible space. And what was so neat about that was that it was, Alan Knoll, our director, when they had asked when Rebecca asked if he would direct it, he said, can we have that set back? And, because it was the same set for Brighton Beach Memoirs.
Right.
That we had done a couple years earlier. And I got a call from Peter Spack, and he said, Alan wants to know if we can build the house again. And I thought I'd check with you because I didn't want to say anything until I knew if it was possible. And this was back in, August. And I said, if we know this week, if we know right now that we're going to do this, yes, I can do it. If you come back to me in November and say, can you build this? It's a much bigger ask. Because and it was the thing that was so neat about that was being able to revisit that set. And, normally in theater, we don't get to rebuild anything. Everything is a custom build. Everything is a one-off, just at least that we do here. And being able to go back, go into my file cabinet, pull out the drawings from a couple years ago and look at those and think about how I did the construction at that point and think about what worked and what didn't, and make some slightly different choices. And also, one of the other challenges with that show was that we had Song Leader Boot Camp in the space. And the first time we built Brighton Beach, I think we built it in maybe 8 or 10 weeks. And I knew that with Song Leader Boot Camp being in the space in February, that we would have about a month from the time they left until tech.
Oh, my goodness.
And so it was a process of how do we build this? How do we build all these pieces and stash them around the theater, stash them around the building so that when Song Leader Boot Camp ends, we can come in, and I think I had about a week before the actors were going to be on stage. How do we essentially build a 2-story house in a week and then spend the next 3 weeks doing finishing touches? So, the planning on that was great. And then also, kind of in a similar thing, Song Leader Boot Camp was in the space shortly before we were supposed to load in We Are the Levinsons, which was a show that never, we got to, almost all the way through Tech Week, and then everything shut down with COVID, and that show never got to be seen by an audience. But it was just a beautiful show, and it had entirely scrim walls, so all the see-through fabric, and I knew that we had to build it and figure out how to build it in a way that it would fit through a double door, because I knew I needed to store it in the shop, bring it into the theater, and assemble it very quickly again. So working with the designer and figuring out how can we do this, how can we make these very delicate walls and store them for months, and also not have a lot of framing, not have a lot of, stay true to the design, but also make a few changes so it will fit through this doorway.
This is the part of theater that I think so many people just don't understand, and it's really exciting if you love theater and if you are around theater or you've participated in theater. What happens on the design front, all the backstage stuff, all the time building and assembling. Audiences get to come in and sit down and just see a beautiful set, but the planning and the working and the teamwork and everything that goes into that is it's really like I imagine it was theater people that built the pyramids, honestly.
Absolutely. There is, and that's what's so cool about this process is, a lot of times I'll get these drawings and it's always such a different experience. I get a set of drawings and I realize that, I look at it and I say, oh, I've never built something like that before, or I don't know what this is going to, I don't know how we're going to do this, but I have a whole team to talk about it with, and I have, a lot of resources. And so far, we really haven't come across anything that we haven't been able to either do or find a way to adapt it to something we can do. So
the next play, June 1st, Gloria, A Life, is coming up. So just let's focus on that for just a moment and tell me, what, if any, are the interesting challenges that you're facing with that set and getting that ready? If the audience is going to be differently configured, or just what are some of the things that you're going to try and accomplish with that show?
Yeah, that show. So one of the neat things about working in the black box is that it is a fully flexible space. All of our seating platforms move, all of our chairs move. So it's really we've got, I don't know, maybe somewhere between 6 and 8 different seating configurations that we've used. So the last show had seating on 3 sides. This one's going to be fully in the round, which always gets to be a challenge because we have to figure out, how does our audience get to those far sides of the stage for seating. Everything I do is going to be seen from all 4 sides. So it's not something where, if there's a piece of trim on a deck, once I get out of sight of the audience, it can just kind of stop, or my joints don't need to be as good. But everything we're going to do on this is seen from every angle. And so there's a level of precision to the carpentry that we have to be aware of in figuring this out, that we don't always, we've got some slop room on things that are only seen from one side.
Yeah, any time you're in the round, you have to be aware that there is going to be an audience member that is going to see the set from every possible angle, and so that makes the finishing work a little bit tougher, I would imagine.
Right, and also then for our director and our props team, just trying to figure out, they've got pieces that they want to bring in. How are those going to happen? There's a lot of challenges, and I'm just assuming, I haven't seen a lighting plot yet, but I'm assuming since things need to be lit from all 4 sides, it's probably going to be a pretty big lighting hang. Working the round is just always a challenge.
Yeah. Well, Laura, this has been such a delightful conversation. I really couldn't wait to have you in here and to talk with us, because it's all that behind the scenes stuff. It's so much of what an audience doesn't know about. The last thing I want to ask you is more behind the scenes. So who's Laura Skroska away from the J? What are some of your favorite hobbies? What are some of the things that you like to do and invest your time in? And maybe just tell us a few unique things about yourself that we don't know.
Sure. So I get to share my house with my husband and our bunny Ted, my husband Phil, and yeah, Ted runs free in our living room, and he is litter box trained and demands breakfast and kisses every morning, which is a lot of fun. Outside of the J, I love to be outside. I spend a lot of time in theaters and rooms with no windows. So getting out and hiking, backpacking, kayaking, just really any kind of travel is great. And then, in addition to my work at the J, I still do a lot of freelance theater work. I do scenic design. I do a lot of props work. And just, being out in the community and working with other theaters that have different resources and other people, all of it just really plays well together. It's like some of my friends give me trouble for working a lot. But the thing that I found is that the more connections I have, the easier my job gets. And it really is also about being in a community and being able to help each other out. And, I've got this great network of people that I can call and say, hey, how did you do this on that show? So it's kind of an interesting position to be in when my career is also what I would be doing for fun. So it's, I do as much travel and as much outdoor stuff as I can, and I also do as much, theater and event work as I can.
Well, what's that adage? If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard work, but I got to say, I love being in theater. I love being at the J, and it's just it's been such an incredible opportunity that I really didn't expect when I applied for the job. So.
Well, that's wonderful. Laura, thank you so much for spending this time with us. I want to remind everybody that's watching, there's a number of events that are coming up. We recently are involved in a collaboration with Left Bank Books. We've got Andy Cohen coming to the J May 6th. And then the following couple of weeks, we're going to be doing Annie Jr. with the youth theater program. And then, as we heard, June 1st, the next new Jewish theater play, Gloria, A Life. So lots of things that are going on. And that'll be it for now. Remember, in the meantime, we want you to watch a film, read a book, go see a play. And until next time, we will see you at the J.